Welcome to Grace in the Chaos, a podcast of real-life insights from parents of children with special needs. I'm Dr. Ryan Rush, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Dr. Chris Sneller, and we both have PhDs, but more importantly, we're dads who live this out day to day in our lives. And Chris, it's so good to be with you, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking because they might have noticed.
It is, Ryan.
It's a little different now.
Roles are flipped here.
I know. My wife Lana is with us. Lana Rush.
Hello.
And we're on the hot seat. So you can grill us, man. And so you're the host.
I am excited to put you on the hot seat, Lana.
Nice.
This will be great.
Sure.
Like Ryan said, welcome to the Grace in Chaos podcast. And what we're able to do with this wonderful podcast is we're able to interview some amazing families. And this time, you're that amazing family that we're interviewing. So I'm excited.
Thanks.
Okay, so we just want to begin. A lot of people, especially in the Katy area at Kingsland Baptist Church, they know you. But we would love to hear a snapshot of your story.
Okay.
So give us a quick biography of yourself, your background, and how you met.
Right. Okay. Background, you start.
Okay. All right. Ryan and I have been married for 32 years.
Great.
We met in Wimberley, Texas, at church.
There you go.
And so Ryan was the youth intern at the church, and that was where my parents went. And I was home from college for the summer, and there we go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's more to the story where it starts to break down. We've noticed a theme where there's a different narrative between the husband and wife, and we definitely have a different
Everyone we've interviewed, this has happened.
Right. I have to say that Lana had a boyfriend. He was not around that summer.
Okay.
And so it was really awkward because she pursued me, and I am a man of the cloth. So I was trying to
move my
hold
chair
back.
away.
That's right. So anyway, we actually never dated. I'll just add that. We because we were good friends, and then she broke up with her boyfriend after I said, okay, I want to be more than friends, and she agreed. And so 2 weeks later I came back, gave her a ring.
You're shaking your head like this is accurate?
That part is accurate.
2 weeks later, and then we were married 4 months later.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
very,
Yeah,
it was
so
very
we just
quickly.
knew that we knew.
It
Yeah,
happened
that's all
quickly.
true.
Yeah.
So before that, I mean, back up and tell us a little bit about your story before then.
Okay, I was raised in the other side of Houston,
Okay.
so in Conroe. Ryan will correct you and say Willis. I graduated from Willis High School.
Willis Wildcats with a
Yes,
K.
with a K.
Right.
Yes, with a K. Very important.
And I have to say, she knows what I'm going to say, but
I know what
you've been to Willis, Chris.
I have been to Willis
there's
recently.
There's a chance that people from Willis will listen to this
I
or watch
sure
this.
hope so. It's a great community.
It's a
It
wonderful
is.
group of people. But I have to say, for years, she would tell people, I'd say, well, I grew up in the Austin area. I grew up in specifically Lockhart High School in Southwest Austin and all this. And she'd say, I grew up in the Houston area. And then I went to do her grandparents' funeral. And I was looking around, I said, you have been telling an untruth all these years. This is not the Houston area.
I'm not ashamed.
This is something
in
else.
the sense that Dallas is in the Houston area.
No.
So,
people in Austin had never heard of Willis.
So they'd
people
help you
here,
know. You
people
could say in the
Houston know
Conroe
Willis.
area.
Okay, whatever.
Anyway, but that's a part of your story. It's
Yes.
a great
Yes, it
upbringing,
is.
wonderful family.
Yeah, I graduated high school in 1987, went to college at TCU in Fort Worth,
Okay.
and got an elementary education degree, taught for a couple of years,
Okay.
married Ryan, and had children of our own, and stayed home with the kids.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's just been,
It's been great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a little bit of your background, your story, Ryan.
All right. I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around until I was 5, and then we settled in Austin. He got involved in aviation there.
The Austin area or Austin itself?
Legitimately Austin first,
Okay.
so Southwest
I
Austin.
mean, Lockhart. I grew up in Austin.
Yes.
Okay.
Not
Southwest
Lockhart,
Austin,
those people on the
Oak
outside.
Hill.
That's
We had
right.
an Austin.
Oak Hill
address.
counts. Oak Hill counts. Yes.
And then 6th grade, we moved to Lockhart.
Yep.
And so I was still, back then, we were in the Austin district, played basketball games there. That kind of
There you go.
Nobody listening to us cares about any of this stuff, but it's noteworthy, right?
You're right.
So went off to college, played basketball. It wasn't as good as I thought, so I only played a couple of years, and then I was doing other things. But I was called to ministry very early on, and have been pastor for, in some capacity, for 35 years. And I've been senior pastor now for 20.
Wow.
So I get to call myself the pastor of Kingsland, along with some other wonderful people. And that's our story up to now. Yeah, 32 years, 3 girls.
Yes.
Yeah, hard to believe.
So 3 girls. This podcast is about families with special needs children.
Yeah.
And so tell us for you when your special needs journey began.
I mean, technically, our oldest daughter is 30. And so she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes right at her 5th birthday. So that was kind of our first little toe in the water. And I didn't really even think of that as special needs. It was when she went to school that they said...
Lots of chronic stuff to think about.
Yeah, and it actually... The school addressed it as a special need because she had to have access to the nurse and things like that. And so... so that was kind of our first little foray into special needs. And then when we had Lily in 2006, that's our 3rd daughter, that's when we really jumped into special needs.
This was our other girls were 12 and 10. So we'd had quite a gap.
Yeah, 13 and 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
So quite a gap between, newborn things anyway.
So Lily is born.
Yes.
And did you know right away that some things different here, or walk us through the next couple years and the diagnosis and what happened?
Yeah, we didn't know right away. No signs while I was pregnant or anything like that. We had Lily in the hospital, came home from the hospital on the 5th day of her life. My mom just happened to be over to spend the night to give us a break. And Lily, we went to bed, and I woke up hearing my mom kind of yelling.
Oh, no.
And so Lily had quit breathing.
Oh,
and so we had to call EMS and go to the hospital. And so that so from day 5, I guess you could say, is when all the testing started and we started finding out, she has a hole in her heart. She has kidney reflux. She has severe GERD. I mean, the things just kept coming.
The list kept growing.
So it's a good way to put it. It was like part 1 and part 2. Part 1 was physical challenges, emergency, urgent care. Is she going to survive that? But if we can make it through, we'll be fine. We got through that. And she was meeting her milestones.
Yeah, we had a big celebration for her first birthday at the church, actually, because we weren't sure that she was going to make it to her first birthday. And so she was doing great. And then about 18 months, we had this weird just regression. And she lost what words she was saying, lost kind of her ability to interact with us.
Connect, right.
Wow.
And so it was... Then, so part 1, we kind of knew special needs physical stuff. And then we felt like, whew, we kind of survived that.
Okay.
And then part 2, and then we've been entrenched in it since then.
And I wonder how many families can relate to this, but for us, that regression wasn't like one day we woke up and said, okay, now we know.
Right.
It was happening, and we were in a little bit denial, and also it's gradual enough that we're thinking, well, she's just having a bad day or this. And then it was probably 2 months in when we had to sit down and go, this is not normal.
Yeah. And Ryan had to make me sit down to have that conversation because I had never been a person that is in, kind of like tries to ignore what's going on or whatever. Like, it's not happening. It's not happening. I knew it was happening, but I didn't want to say it out loud because once we said it, I knew that it was just going to be completely different from then on.
You said it. What's the it in that statement?
I think for me, obviously we had to address things with Lily. We knew that we were going to, we didn't know everything that we know now, but we did know that we were going to have to be seeking outside help, doctors. We could see this therapy, that kind of stuff to try and help her. But for me, I think it was it was more I was going to have to address a little bit of my relationship with the Lord.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because I was I felt like I had prayed so hard, for her to come through this, and she did in a way, with the physical stuff. And then when this regression started, I just was crushed. I just felt like God had really kind of, I hesitate to say let me down because that's not the
that's
expectation.
How you felt, though.
But it is how I felt.
Yeah.
I did.
We're going to be honest, and that's the truth. I think that everybody who's walked through that crisis can relate to is the fact that you have an expectation. It doesn't mean it's good theology. It's just a fact. Well, wait a second. Don't you know who I am,
Yeah.
and what I've done,
Yeah.
and then it's a crushing blow.
I just felt like he had answered so many prayers up to that point. It was almost harder for that regression when it happened because it was like, oh, no, not really. Like it was just a joke. Like I took care of that stuff in the beginning, but here we go.
Well, I think when that regression starts, another thing that I've experienced is you start to think, well, there's a doctor out there. There's a specialist.
Yeah.
And that specialist has a unique therapy, or there's a medication. We just need to find that specialist, that medication.
Oh,
or
right.
there's a therapist and there's a new therapy. Or in our world, sometimes people are like, let me come pray for your child.
Yes.
And if I just pray for your child, I know that things will get better and they'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so I think there's all these things that give us that sense of, maybe the regression is temporary. And when we find the solution, the answer, things will be better.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the pain of that.
Yes.
That part of the journey is we might see progress for a week or a month, but then the regression continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has become a common theme so far on this
It
podcast,
has.
Chris, is
It
this
has.
balance between surrender and pursuit.
Yes.
Because you got to do both. There's a tension. And, I know there's some people would say, no, there shouldn't be a tension. It's all surrender. Well, it's not for us, right? I mean, we're going to do what we can that the Lord has commissioned us to do to steward our child well. But we also have to find that place to go, okay, but we can't do that.
Right.
And there's even a little bit of arrogance in thinking, okay, I can solve this.
I can fix it.
So it's funny you brought that up, Lana, because for you in that season, it was, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, wait a second, God, how dare you? Don't you understand what we've done?
Right.
For me, I started thinking as a dad, what have I done to cause this?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, I must have done something.
You feel responsible in some way.
Right. So for me, very soon after, I start connecting irrational dots in my mind, thinking, okay, I've known some pastors who've been very effective in ministry, who had special needs children or disabled children, or worse, lost a child.
Yeah.
So I bet you this is happening so that God can allow me to be a better dad or better pastor.
Better pastor.
And that just took me over the edge.
And you're thinking, I'll give up being a pastor.
Exactly.
Like I'm not willing
Chris,
to be a better pastor in order to have.
I sat across my mentor at a coffee shop. I remember the day.
Yep.
And I'd already told Lana what I was going to do. Sat down with Ralph and said, Ralph, I just explained what I just explained to you. He was kind enough to listen to that.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm quitting. And he said, you what? I said, I can work at a gas station or, haul trash, or not to take anything away from people who are doing
do anything.
Right.
anything.
That's not this.
But you're not going to go after my family. Do whatever you want to me, God, but not my kid. As though I'd somehow solved God's formula.
Right.
Oh, thanks,
Right.
Ryan. Now everything will be fine with Lily, and she'll
that's
progress
what Ralph
normally.
said to me is he said, Ryan, you know what's wrong with why questions? And I said, what? He said, let's say God just called you right now. I said, you know what, Ryan, you found me out. It was so that you'd be a better pastor. What would you say? I'd say, well, why can't you do that another way? Well, and if he answered that, you just have this string of why questions like a 3-year-old does with his parents because they can't possibly understand what you're doing. You're not going to solve that. He said, you need to get a better question.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's good insight.
Yeah.
Okay, so there has been a theme of the conversations we've had of just trusting God and ultimately surrender. But to your point, there is strain and effort in trying to. So walk us through that season of, Lana, I'm especially curious from you as the mom, because you're busy at your church leading your staff and preaching. And Lana, I suspect that most of your waking hours are spent trying to figure out how to help my daughter.
Yeah.
And so walk us through that season of your life and the things that you did to try to figure things out, to get a diagnosis, to get help, to help.
I think the easier thing would be to answer what I did not do, because I feel like I did everything.
So you did everything. You tried desperately.
Everything. I mean, I read every book. I was on, I asked the Google all the time. I was looking up doctors. My nightstand, I'm a huge reader.
Oh, imagine a pile next to her bed, 10 books high, 3 across,
Nothing
and then
fun.
another one just like it on the bedside table. Nothing but books about special needs or disability or autism or chromosomal disorder.
Because you want to figure
I'm
it out.
not exaggerating.
Yes.
I think that what happens is, I mean, part of it is my makeup and my personality. I'm going to fix it. Like, I'm going to figure out. It's kind of like what you said. There's this solution out there, and I am determined to find it. There's going to be the book on the one shelf at the one Barnes and Noble, and I'm going to find it. And obviously, that's not true. But I think you fall into this trap of thinking, especially when you have a personality like that likes to be in control, likes to figure out things and solve it and take care of it. There's also the special needs specialists are telling you, you have this 3-year window. You've got this 3-year window. I mean, that's I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I heard that. And every day the window closes a little bit more, and you've only
all
got
on you.
this.
All the pressure's on you. If you don't figure it out,
Yes. And you've got this certain
her
amount of time.
destiny's, like, all on you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and if you don't figure something out by the time that window shuts, she's this way forever, and it's because you didn't figure it out.
Wow.
And so those two things combined with my own personality, I was rabid, I would say, about trying to find anything and everything that would help.
Wow. Wow.
So that's kind of how I handled it. I got a little bit lost in that.
So tell us, like, I think you gave some of your background. You talked about your girls. Tell us about Lily today. Like, how is she? What's her life like? I think the listeners of Grace in the Chaos would really love to hear.
Yeah.
Like, what's her reality?
Right now, she is 17 years old, and she is a happy girl. One of the things that we have always been grateful for the last several years, I think more so than ever, she has just kind of settled into who she is. She's always been.
At what age did that start? 13, 14?
Probably
Okay.
Probably
3
around
years
in
ago.
there. Yeah, it hasn't been terribly long, but she is, and maybe it's also
Right.
partly because we're a
I'm
little
sure-
more
I'm sure that-
settled
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the things we've always been somewhat thankful for with her is that even in the worst of days, she was affectionate.
Oh, that's good.
And so she may pinch the fire out of me, and I couldn't, wear sleeveless shirts for a while because I looked like I had. Anyway, I wasn't a good look. But anyway, but she would,
on good days after that initial, deep separation, she was connected to us,
Yeah.
and is very much so now.
But I would say even more so now. I mean,
Right.
she's very content. We still wonder.
Language-wise?
She's still nonverbal. She uses a device to speak, but it's still very, very
spotty.
Yeah.
She's almost completely hearing impaired. So these are some things that have happened through
With
the
a cochlear
years.
implant or anything?
No,
or
she wears a high-powered hearing aid in one ear
Okay.
and the other.
She's deaf in one ear, so.
If it goes any further, we may pursue that.
Right.
But yeah, that's where we are. So
But-
I agree with all those things.
Yeah, I think she is a happy kid, and for us, that's enough. We often wonder, what goes on in her head because
sure.
she can take your phone, Chris, right now, and she can within 30 seconds, she's going to find a Backyardigans video that's never been on your phone before.
Backyardigans.
I don't know how she pulls
I
it off.
don't know what she does.
6 degrees of backyardigan separation.
So it is hilarious and it is astounding, and we're like, I don't know, how much does she read? Who knows? But
Right.
I'm going to turn the conversation now because I'm really curious. Like, what has God taught you? Like, in the midst of life turning out differently than you anticipated when you were 30, in the midst of confusion, in the midst of trying to lead a church and care for your family well, what's the biggest lesson God has taught or perhaps is teaching you now?
Yeah. So first of all, it's a lot harder to be on this side of the microphone. Wow. Okay.
We need a spotlight. with a
No,
lot of
That's
here
right.
you go.
Help you
Exactly.
sweat a little
Feels
bit
like
more.
that. So I think Lana would echo this and will be able to give a more nuanced response. but the best way that I can word it is a positive pessimism.
Okay.
So that's the lesson that I would.
Bit of a paradox there.
It is. And here's what I mean by that. We used to expect a lot more out of this world, and that is painfully, wildly disappointing.
Yes, it is.
You know, when you just realize, well,
Yes.
I don't want it to be broken. Oh, it's broken. Well, I want this to work. This world is a mess.
Yes.
And once we kind of arrived at that place, it took away some of the crushing blows. But wouldn't you say, Lana, it's not like we live negative lives at all. We just treasure the positive things when they happen. Like, okay, that's the miracle that in the midst of this,
Yep.
okay, we have this little glimpse of God in this messed up world. And when you rearrange that and you stop expecting heaven, and you stop
Right
thinking
here
that
and now.
right
Yes.
here, you stop thinking that we're living in the Garden of Eden. All of a sudden you go, okay, this is actually exactly what happened in God's grand narrative that
Yes.
He said would happen.
Yes.
And so we're not taking these crushing blows when we leave a doctor's office and they say it really didn't go that well, because we know, wait a second, I know who God is.
Yes.
And we've seen glimpses of His glory all the way through.
Yes, good word.
So
Yeah, I think
that's
that
been important to us.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
because I think what you fall into is, and it started kind of this learning a little bit started when we had Ryley with the diabetes, and we tend to pray for our kids like, I want complete and total healing and nothing else.
Right.
Like, I want Ryley to have no more diabetes, period. I want Lily to be able to talk
Yes.
and her brain to be healed and whatever it is, period, and nothing less. And I think what we have finally learned as a way to survive, and also a way to recognize that it's not going to be that way
Yeah.
until we get to heaven. I think that what we have learned, like Ryan said, is we look for, I call them little healings along the way.
Yeah.
And so, Ryley, our oldest, is able to, she rock climbs like crazy. She's always out
skilled.
and hiking. She
Yeah.
is super in shape and super healthy. That's a healing
Yeah.
to have type 1 diabetes the way that she does.
Yeah.
With Lily, she is affectionate. She is able to use a device to communicate with
Yeah.
us. Those are healings.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not exactly the way we wanted it,
Yeah.
but it's there if we're willing to look for it.
I just, as y'all were both talking, I was thinking of our brothers and sisters in Christ in the majority world. So in Iran, in China, North Korea, and how they're often under no illusion that they're in control.
Yes.
And that life is really painful. And their only hope is in Jesus' return and setting all things right.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in the West, in Western Europe, in North America, we can have this illusion of control that we've
Yes.
talked about. And we can surround ourselves with, we have the education, we have the technology, we have the money to fix everything. And then a special needs comes into our family and we can't fix it. We can't control it. No amount of education, technology, and money can fix it. And suddenly we're left with, I guess I just have to hope in the return of Jesus, like Christians around the world do.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And so it's optimism, it's pessimism, it's pessimistic, it's optimistic. Like what do
Right.
you call that? It's a paradox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I remember Lana picking up a book by Randy Alcorn called "If God Is Good." What a great title, because we all finished the sentence,
Yeah.
in different ways. But one of the points he makes in that book is that what we have to face when we go through our tough times and we say, if God is good, thus and so, is you realize that those trials were happening globally and historically before you had it, and you only are feeling this right now because you're
It's
walking
personal.
through it.
Yes.
So this reality, this theological tension is
Yes.
all the time, everywhere in this world right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
And so that again, man, what a negative thought, but it doesn't have to be.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be. I remember Lana talking to some friends of ours who said, I wish that the Lord would have brought
Yeah.
the miracle.
Yes.
And who was that? And what did she say? She said, I when I see Lily,
No, I was telling her we were asking for prayer again for Lily, and sometimes we were starting to feel, as a pastor and his wife, that so many other people in your congregation have serious things going on that they need prayer for, and we're not going to say that we need prayer for Lily again, because everybody's like,
Everybody
oh my
knows this,
gosh.
right.
And so I said to this friend, I was saying, sometimes I worry about bringing up all the time, like, we need attention, we need prayer, and also just, I don't want everybody to think of Lily as this sick kid, because
Right.
she's not. And she said, Lana, they had been with us from the very beginning. But she said, Lana, she's not. When I look at Lily, I don't see a sick girl. I see a miracle. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I remember that all the time. Lily is to me, she is, this is going to sound weird, but she is our visual, walk with a limp, thorn in the side, whatever you want to call our longing for heaven. She is our longing for heaven in flesh and blood in front of us.
Sometimes that's because of heartache, and sometimes that's because we just see these glimpses of contentment and joy that she can have while everybody else has all this stuff going on that she's like, I don't care. I'm just going to focus on this. Lily, incidentally, is also our prayer police at our house.
Okay. In what way?
When we have a meal, she's going to look at you. She's going to do this as a sign to pray. And if we have guests over, she doesn't care about their
faith
spiritual background. She's like, no, you will be praying.
You will be praying.
And if you don't, she'll, just give you this look.
And is this a quick dad prayer or is this a Baptist preacher prayer?
Oh, well, it's a good question. It doesn't matter.
Get to quote Psalms
sometimes
when you do this prayer.
So sometimes she'll want multiple prayers, like, Lord, I want to, I want to thank you for this course as well. God, now we're having salad. So she'll say,
wonderful.
Okay,
we have a small group at our house that meets every other week, and sometimes the sitter is with her and sometimes she's not. So we split up one night into men and women, and all the women were sitting in the room praying, and Lily was sitting on the couch next to me, had her feet up in my lap and everything. And so I look over at her while we're doing this prayer, and she has her hands folded. She always mutes her device, even if it's in her Bluetooth hearing aid. She mutes it. She folds her hands, and I look at her, and she is just looking around the room, smiling at everyone. Like she's just so happy
in the moment.
Because
that's beautiful.
It was very sweet. So
a different question that we don't have written down, Ryan, is coming to mind. I think you, as you're leading a church, and it's a large church.
Okay.
And you did the same thing in Austin, then you moved to the Houston area here to Katy. So both for you as a leader of a church, a senior pastor, and for you as the first lady. In the urban church, I used to be on the first lady of the church. I think there's some pastors out there who are desperately trying to lead their church as well.
Right.
And they have a new diagnosis, or their wife is pregnant, and they realize that their child has special needs, or they realize their life has been completely turned upside down with news. What encouragement would you have, both of you, for how to walk with God in hope, how to be faithful to their calling as a leader of a church?
Gotcha.
And to engage your family in a loving, what'd you do well when you were younger? What'd you not do well? What advice do you have to that young pastor?
Okay. Well, first of all, remember I said that right away I thought, I bet you this is going to make me a better pastor, and I resented that deeply. But the reality is I know I pastor differently as Lily's dad than I did before.
You do.
And that is, I wasn't, callous to people before, but I didn't understand some of the hurts and heartaches that people
You've been broken,
through.
and we know it in this congregation.
So I minister in a different way that way.
It's true.
And I don't know whether we distinctly said this. We never made this decision. It was just we had no energy to do otherwise. But we just decided, okay, we're going to live out loud, and we're going to walk through this and just be transparent as much as we can. I'll say authentic rather than transparent, because we can't share everything, but we share as much as we can.
Yes.
Because that has been our deepest and best ministry. It has changed how we minister. I'll give you an example. I'm going to brag on her for a second, and then I'll hand you the microphone. Lana has learned through what she shared, some of their own struggles of, wait, God, how could you do this? To pray much more honestly.
Absolutely.
And so I remember being in a meeting at Kingsland several years ago where some families were dealing with struggles with their kids. Yeah. And somebody said, well, I can't even bring it to God because I'm just so mad. And Lana interrupted from the back of the room. She said, can I say something? As if I'm going to say no. She said, pray mad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pray mad. Like, look at the Psalms and how
pray
many
mad.
times. Pray mad.
It's called lament, right?
Changed the whole dynamic. But
praying mad.
I don't know that we knew how to pray mad before.
Yes.
Not just to be mad, but because that leads you to somewhere deeper and honest with God. And I don't know that we've been there a whole lot before.
Yeah. I think, we see in the Psalter, David and all the psalmists, they pray mad, They pray sad, they pray glad. They pray through this, not just the positive emotions, but all the negative emotions. And I think that's why the Psalms are so prominent in the history of the church. Like, these are honest people bringing their real selves to a God who cares, who wants to hear. And so I love that, praying mad.
Yeah.
Anything?
I think it's just, I mean, I agree with that. I do think that my prayer life for sure has changed. I feel like my relationship with the Lord is much more honest than it ever was before. And I laugh because pray mad, pray sad, like you just said. I mean, it's not like God doesn't already know anyway. It's not like you're keeping a secret from him. Like, I'm mad, but I'm not going to tell you. So I do think that why not just go ahead and say it? Everybody feels better after getting it off their chest. I would say that as far as my role, and this is me personally, and I have been very fortunate to have some wonderful senior pastor wife role models
first ladies
in my life. Yes, first ladies, the first ladies in my life, who modeled for me that family is before the church. And so sometimes that's unpopular, and sometimes a congregation has different expectations of their senior pastor's wife than they do at other churches. But I have been fortunate to be in a church that has allowed me to love my family first and has understood that that is my first priority. And then I also have Ryan, who has always backed me up. And if anybody has ever questioned, he just says, hey, Lana's a volunteer like everybody else at the church. She's not on the payroll.
She's going to pursue her calling, what God calls her to do.
Volunteer in the areas that I feel called to do, just like anybody else.
She's always felt that freedom, and because of that, she's been more effective in ministry. But I would say that having a special needs child has kind of forced us to say, okay, we are going to make sure that home, the ministry at home is not neglected. So going back to your question about young pastors or people, leaders in ministry, and I think this applies to anybody watching or listening, right, is that you have to reorient.
You do.
You have to.
Yes.
And maybe that goes back to the positive pessimism, going, you know what, part of it is you can't do everything. And so we're going to choose to disappoint some people, but we're gonna choose which ones those are, and we're gonna make sure that we are there, that we don't have regrets later on because we didn't pursue something, that we needed to with our daughter because we didn't have time, or just to be with her.
Yes.
Right.
I think the other thing I might say that is a little. It may not be as spiritual as some people would think.
Great. Chris, there goes
Here
the
it comes. Here it comes.
Man.
Sorry. I was just going to say, sometimes pastors and their families are a little hesitant to seek counseling or something like that because they feel like they should have it figured out, or they feel like we're Christians, it's a faith thing, whatever. Do not be afraid of counseling. And I think Ryan would agree with me, would recommend whole family counseling, like everybody, the siblings.
Find a Christian counselor, sit down and navigate that because it impacts everybody.
It does.
That's a good word.
It does.
Yeah. And the last thing, a pastor told me when Lily really got the diagnosis and we recognized things will never be the same again. I don't know what day that was, but word started to get out. Okay, this is more than the health challenges now. She has a rare chromosomal challenge that is going to impact her rest of her life. So this pastor that I knew from growing up, small church in Lockhart, really special man, just recently retired, has a son who's now in heaven who had Down syndrome. He called me and he said, Ryan, I want to give you one word of advice of raising a disabled child. He said, one time a day, 10 minutes a day, you need to stop everything, get on the floor with your child.
That's good. That's
and
great
be
insight.
present. And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, Ryan, she is your daughter. She's not your project.
Yes.
And that was transformational to me.
Yeah.
So again, pastor to pastor, I'd say that to anyone as well. But that was really important to me.
It was life-changing.
Something I've observed as I've been part of the special needs community here at Kingsland Baptist Church. Lana, you've been on Wednesday night a lot. You've been at Wednesday night a lot and helped lead that. And I just see the way you engage and interact, and you have this fun and playful spirit. It seems like you don't take yourselves too seriously. And that's really hard. because you're supposed to be very serious as a pastor. And when you have a child with special needs, you can feel weighted down by the sadness related to that.
Right.
So how do you keep a lightness in your spirit and a joy in your marriage? And this is off script. I'm hopping on this one. But
I think...
I mean, besides your husband.
Yes, of course. That's the obvious answer. I feel like, it kind of goes back to me to those expectations. I'm not sure that this is 100% answering your question.
No, go there.
But I feel like Ryan and I have said that a lot of times, I know you've experienced this too, Chris. You're listening to a speaker, and he's telling you everything that he did right and everything that he did well. And I don't really learn as much from those people as the ones who are like, let me tell you about this time I really screwed up. Don't do this. This didn't work or whatever. And I feel like Ryan and I want everyone to kind of lower their expectations of me. Kind of like we talked about. I don't want you to expect too much from me. And so I feel like in a way it's kind of a defense mechanism. But also, it's just who we are.
We're inviting them into. We're inviting them to experience the chaos or the reality of the pessimism. To go, this is not okay, and we're going to be honest about that because this is not supposed to be okay.
Right.
It's not going to help.
A different narrative, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not going to help anybody if we sit in front of a group of special needs parents, especially special needs parents. But because we know their struggles, what good is it going to do for us to sit there and create this false perception of we're so thankful for this gift that God has given us?
Yeah.
That's not, those people don't feel that way.
For young pastors or young leaders in general listening, I want to underline and highlight that point, and that is be real.
Yes.
Well,
be authentic. Don't hide. Don't pretend. Don't be fake.
So one other aspect of that, we have a mission statement at Kingsland that says, inviting all people to experience true fulfillment in Jesus Christ, one home at a time. The reason why we arrived at that mission statement, where we said true fulfillment, was because we looked around at our culture, and this is over stereotyping maybe Katy and West Houston. If you come here, they're wonderful people. But there's a lot of pursuit of false fulfillment.
Absolutely.
People come here because they want to have the right job, have the right car, have the right
school.
kids, the right school, get into the right school after that school, and all that.
Yes.
And it's incredibly, it's noble pursuits, but they're not fulfilling.
Yes.
And they're looking around and going, wait a second, this isn't what I hoped. And I think the special needs ministry and those involved in it have an awareness and kind of exposes all that. Like, okay,
yes, we do.
This is not working for fulfillment. It's the reason I'd grabbed a shirt that said true fulfillment.
There you go. I love it.
So because it's a reminder that, hey, wait a second. We've been given a gift, and that gift is to see things as they are in this world.
Wonderful.
They're temporary.
That's right. That's right. Wow, this has been good. This has been heavy. We're going to finish with a game. You ready for a game? Lightning round? Can we do lightning round?
Ryan just wants to know if there's going to be a winner.
No, a winner.
We talked about that.
Did we talk about that already?
How can we make this a competition? The winner gets the rest of the tea.
I'm not
give
sharing
you.
Okay.
So a few questions, quick answers. Don't need to elaborate, but
right.
All right. Best book you've read recently?
Okay, so I am a huge reader, but I just finished one. Little bit weird, has a little bit of language. Sorry.
That's okay.
But it's called How to Stay Married, the Most Insane Love Story Ever Told.
Okay.
It's kind of a refreshing look at a marriage that was broken and came back together.
Okay.
Very interesting.
By
Harrison Scott Key.
Okay.
Harrison Scott Key.
This book is not endorsed by this podcast.
Sorry.
So mine,
It will not be in the podcast notes, by the way.
book I just wrapped up has been the most just finished by David Brooks. It's not a Christian book, but deeply biblical as well.
You can't steal mine. You can't steal mine for the lightning round.
How to Know a Person.
You're stealing mine. Oh, great book, isn't
I'm
it?
so glad I said it. Incredible.
You said it first.
Very
I can't say it.
convicting, but the idea, I
So
think
good.
it's telling that he didn't call it How to Know People, because we know how to do that. We know how to give surveys and all this, but how to sit down, look someone in the eye, and really know their heart and their mind. And it was very interesting to me and convicting.
This is supposed to be a lightning round, and I'm not doing a very good job
That's all right.
of going fast. But how do you relate to what Brooks says in that book to having a child with special needs?
Wow.
Oh.
That's a good question, because it actually, Lana can tell you, I finished about half the book and I walked in and told her, I've got to call Reagan, our middle daughter, because I felt as though I hadn't really listened to her.
Yeah, I know.
Something.
Presence.
So it led to an apology with her.
Yeah.
So, but with understanding what Lily's seeking to communicate in the times where she's not as easily understood.
Yeah.
My education background, the PhD work, was in attachment science. So I've learned a
area.
whole bunch about really how disabled children and others deal with that. And I know there's been some challenges where Lily perceives sometimes that she's not heard because we haven't been able to understand it. So we have to be really proactive in trying to get the verbal cues. You know, we've taken her to the hospital before for something, and they'll say, well, what makes you think she's sick? Well, she just can't tell us, but this, and this have changed.
Mm-hmm. Behavior.
So can you check? She can't tell us. So that's a long answer to a really good question.
Thank you.
So you didn't mess up the lightning round this time. I messed up the lightning round, and we may have to change the name. Yeah.
Okay. Lily's favorite food right now.
Lily's favorite food right now is French fries. French fries. It doesn't
home,
matter where they're
McDonald's,
from. Anywhere.
French fries.
Tater tots? Onion rings? Or
Tater
just French fries?
no onion rings. Tater tots, if there's no French fries available.
Right.
Not big fat French fries, but just good old
Unlike Pierce Robinson on a previous episode, who likes all things potatoes, Lily is much more particular.
Limited to the deep
Now,
fried.
I would
Yes,
say
she
that
is.
the alternative that we offer her, she likes frozen grapes.
Yes.
She
Okay.
would eat, so those are a little bit healthier. So she eats a lot of
Frozen
frozen grapes cut in half.
Yes.
Yes.
No
So
choking.
if she spends 3 hours eating fries and frozen grapes and you get a little break, a 3-hour break, what do you do? What do you like to do if you have a break?
I would go to a bookstore, and then I would take a nap.
A nap in a bookstore with your husband.
Not
No.
necessarily. Not necessarily.
A break.
So we do. When we have date night, we are super, maybe nerdy that way, but a lot of times we'll go to a coffee shop and then we'll go to a bookstore. Maybe
you
it's
go.
my cheapskate,
Yeah.
and me, we'll do that and we can peruse and spend hours and maybe take a book home. Yeah, that's it. So those are similar. But the difference is I would say, the perfect time would be I'd be hanging out with Lana, and she would say, no.
Not some alone time.
When I want to show love to Lana, I will send her out by herself and
Yes.
say, I got everything. Just go spend the night somewhere.
I laugh and say my favorite person to spend time with is myself.
True. Because she so rarely gets to.
The fact
She's
that you're
pouring into
admitting it on the
everybody else.
podcast, I love.
She's
It's out
pouring
there
into
for
everybody
everyone to
else.
know.
Does great. So she deserves it.
So what is a unique skill or fascination that Lily has?
I would say backyardigans.
Okay.
Backyardigans.
She
her
loves the backyardigans.
her backyardigans is her thing that she loves to do. But
For
are you going to say
15 years. I was going to
electronics?
say, no, I was going to say sense of direction. It's
Oh my
pretty
gosh,
remarkable.
yeah, I forgot.
This
So
kid,
she's like
she's
the
been
GPS.
one place, she can tell you where it is, and if you go the wrong way, she gets really put out with
Yes.
you because she knows exactly where to go to get.
So if you
just
make a
about
wrong
anywhere.
turn or take a different
Or
route,
if you do a
Oh.
U-turn,
No, she
it's
is-
going to be
does
bad.
she
does she
not
kick your
good.
seat? Does she hit your head? What does she
She's
do?
just
She
gonna
just
give you
does
a
this
grunt.
sound like,
Right.
like
Really
you're
put
so
out.
dumb.
Right. Yeah.
So backyardigans might be the answer to this one, but what's the soundtrack that's on repeat either in your car or on her iPad?
Okay. Soundtrack
Yeah.
in your car.
I would say,
Taylor Swift?
like, if she's in the car with me or if I'm in my car
I
by
want to hear
myself.
both. I want to hear both.
Okay, if she's in the car with me, it's going to be, lately, it's exercise videos. I don't know if she's trying to send me a message.
Yeah, she
Okay.
likes to watch exercise
Yeah,
videos
okay.
and
She's
listen
not-
to them.
yeah.
Okay. If she's not there,
The soundtrack in my car, if she's not there, is a podcast, a true crime podcast.
Right.
Podcast. Okay.
Yeah, Lana's into like true crime things.
Okay.
And and so if I ever disappear, Chris, maybe I should say this on the broadcast. Don't just assume it was an accident and I disappeared. You might want to just call the police.
I'm going to come into this room and make a podcast about it.
There you go. That's right.
Like
there
only
you go.
murders in the
that'll be-
building.
that's
And we'll try to
great.
figure out how to solve
I think that's
the
great.
disappearance
I don't think
of
you'll
Ryan
be able
Rush.
to solve
Mine
it.
varies
though.
wildly in my car. It could be classical music. I'm just trying to tone down before I go home, or it could be country. And drive Lana crazy because I'll switch around.
Well,
Right.
here's what
Sure.
Ryan does. Do you remember when you were in high school and you had like the favorite song?
Yep.
And you would just listen to it over and over and over. Ryan still does that. And
Repeat.
so, yeah. So
like,
every
enough.
now and then we're like,
Enough of Ben Rector.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
and
it's-
then,
3 times
Right.
I thought was enough, but
I've had it
apparently
with
not.
Stephen Curtis Chapman.
No.
No more Yo-Yo Ma. This is what she does to me.
He'll
Like
do
I
that.
get in a groove.
And he's like, but I thought you liked Ben Rector. And I was like, I would like to still
So
like
I will
Ben
not
Rector.
send him my
Right.
favorite songs because then you might put on repeat
Exactly.
and just loop through it. Okay.
Right.
Besides Willis, Favorite cities in the world?
Oh, yeah. Willis, it's good you said that.
The Wildcats with the K.
Favorite cities in the world?
I would say pretty much, most cities in Colorado. We're huge Colorado fans. If I'm going to be really fancy, I'm going to say Venice, Italy.
Okay, Venice. That is a great spot.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. We, last year, had the opportunity to go to Oxford.
Yes, that was lovely.
I did some studies, my doctoral work there, but to go with her and just spend time, and it's like going back in time a little bit to be there.
It's a magical place.
The Anglican tradition has something called evensong, where they come together and do hymn sings in the evenings, and we attended that several times and enjoyed
that was great.
that experience.
Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
What is a future dream? And this is our final question, and we'll wrap up. What is a future dream that you have for Lily? When you think about Lily's ideal future, a hope, a prayer for her, what is that?
I think I want to know that whatever it is that we are doing for her or providing for her at that time is what she wants as well, too. Like, it can be hard to figure out. So I just I would like to find comfort in knowing that she and I, or you and I and her, are all on the same page. We've kind of hit that sweet spot, and everybody's happy.
Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like to get spiritual with it. The biblical word shalom.
Yes.
Like there's peace. But it's more than peace. It's contentment. So 30 years from now, we hope Lily has a purpose. She's serving or working in a community surrounded by people who are kind of fanning the flame of that, skill of artwork or photography or whatever she's doing that she can do, because she's most content and joyful, like all of us, when she's engaged in something.
I can't at that point resist this plug. So here at Kingsland Baptist Church, we have a new cafe. And it's called the Friends Ice Cream and Coffee Cafe.
I think that's it.
It may be. I don't know if that's top secret, but news just broke on the
breaking news. By the time this
Chaos
podcast,
I don't know if it is or not.
By the time it comes out. So the beautiful thing with this cafe and the unique thing is the adults and young adults who work there will have a variety of disabilities and special needs. And so it's a place that we can welcome our community to come for great gelato, great coffee, and to be served by some very special individuals.
Yeah.
So
it's an answer to prayer. A lot of people have poured a lot into that to make it happen. I can't wait to see what God has in store.
I know. I'm so excited.
Man, it's been cool to be with you, Chris.
Well,
on this
thanks,
side,
Lana. Thanks, Ryan. This Grace in the Chaos podcast has been brought to you by empoweredhomes.org. Our church here, Kingsland Baptist Church, produces this podcast. We have thousands of free resources, so please check it out, and thanks for being with us today.